Inti Creates is a legendary developer when it comes to creating new games with a retro soul. They are best known for the development of the Mega Man Zero series, Curse of the Moon, and Azure Striker Gunvolt. Individuals of culture might recognize them from their Galgun series. Their newest release, Grim Guardians Demon Purge, GGDP for short, is another great release filled with Inti Creates' beautiful sprite work and superb gameplay design. How is the latest Inti Creates action platformer? The story of Grim Guardians follows Shinobu and Maya, siblings on their way to school when all of a sudden they get transported to the demon dimension by their demon rival Corona. The school is brought with them and is transformed into a giant castle. Huge Transylvania castle. Shinobu and Maya have to make it to the apex of the castle to confront Corona and return themselves and the school back to their dimension. Let's talk about the visuals and sound here for a second. Inti Creates has always set the standard with their amazing pixel art, so this game does not fall short there. The running animation for the heroines are great to look at. One of the most satisfying things for me is the death animation for enemies. If an enemy is killed with Shinobu's arsenal, they explode into a glorious amount of bloody pieces. If Maya kills an enemy, they are sliced into two perfect halves. Cue the blood spray. The impact of Shinobu's explosives and Maya's swords are magnifique. The environments and enemies have a nice variety to them. There are common enemies that are shared amongst each level, but there are particular enemies you'll face in certain stages. The environments themselves keep things feeling fresh from stage to stage. Our heroines start in the castle entrance, traverse into an icy cave that later turns into a magma cave, and finally ends in a dimensional rift. There are also nice touches throughout the game, such as reflections of characters on the floor, parallax scrolling, and my favorite, Symphony of the Night clouds. Timeless, really. The soundtrack here is okay. Nothing here comes out to me, it's not striking, unlike their work for Mega Man Zero and Curse of the Moon, which I still go back to and listen to on my free time. Some people might come for the voice acting, and I gotta say something here. The English VA only occurs during scenes and attacks. The Japanese VA happens during any interactions, such as dialogue, cutscenes, character interactions, which is a little bit disappointing for those looking for a full English VA. One thing that got annoying through my 20 hours of gameplay is the quips the sisters say during their attacks. You know that Japanese stuff, they always like saying their name of their attacks when they're doing it, which was fine at the beginning, but the problem is that they have 3 to 4 lines that they recycle through each and every attack. The sound mixing is great though. Sound effects, BGM, and voice acting are well regulated and one does not overpower the other. Now let's move on to the meat and potatoes of this, the gameplay. How does it feel to play? Let's address the elephant in the room. Grim Guardian wears its inspiration on its sleeve. Inti Creates scratched the Mega Man itch that Capcom left in the late 2000s into the 2010s, and now they're doing something similar with the Castlevania franchise. Also, I didn't know this, but apparently this is also a Galgun spinoff, so apparently that shows you the kind of person that I am. They've combined their Horn Dog franchise, Galgun, with the goth aesthetic of Castlevania. I'm talking about linear Castlevania here. A lot of people are going to call this a Metroidvania, but that implies a giant interconnected world. That is not going to be here at all. If anything, it's more like Crestvania. Y'all remember Demon's Crest? If you're a true OG homie, then of course you do. In a Crestvania, the player still acquires new items and abilities that allows traversal, but since the stages are linear, there is really not a lot of interconnected exploration between stages. You can't access a new path in stage 1 and end up in stage 3. Know what I'm saying? The playable characters here are a joy to play as well. You'll be swapping between Shinobu and Maya. Shinobu is the military core of the duo. She got that 9mm, pineapples, and an M202 flash, also known as a Grim Reaper for you Call of Duty fans. She's going to be the one to play as if you enjoy ranged combat. There's also going to be certain situations where you're just going to have to interact with enemies from afar. She also has more health than her younger sister Maya. Some downsides to her include not being able to destroy enemies with shields initially. She will be able to counteract that, can't hit enemies that are low to the ground, and can't crouch evade certain attacks. Maya is the melee fighter of the group. Her 3-hit combo is a damage dealer, the last hit dealing out extra damage with its launched projectiles. She can dispatch enemies with shields, evade certain attacks with a crouch, and crawl through certain spaces. Her arsenal consists of melee-centric weapons and items meant for traversal and environmental changes. She's got a penguin here that'll allow you to turn water into ice and get a little bit of extra height of your jump, and eventually you'll be able to get a certain attack that allows you to kind of do a pseudo double jump. Maya is the definition of a glass cannon. She can deal out some massive damage, but can only take 3 to 4 hits before she gets dispatched herself. If one of the sisters happens to fall in battle, fret not, homie. The other sister will be on a revenge mission to resuscitate our ass, as long as she doesn't get wrecked as well. Because if both go out, then you're going to lose a life, and that's one game over that you do not want to see. The only exception to this is the unlockable legendary mode, made for real gamers, where if one sister gets got, then you lose a life. Initially, there are 2 difficulties to choose from. You get the casual mode, which removes knockback and removes lives, so you have unlimited continues, allowing players to get their bearings and backtrack without huge worries. If you like a little spice with your steak and fought in wars, then veteran difficulty is for you. Knockback is included here, which can result in some not so desirable deaths, and you have a limited supply of lives. Really harkens back to the days of old. Once you run out of those bad boys, then you'll either have to restart the stage or go back to the main menu. The inclusion of different difficulties opens up the gates for players looking for the right difficulty, which is always veteran, of course. The difficulty won't affect the ending either, so don't feel like you have to play one or the other. Play what's good for you. In order to get an ending in the game though, the game does have to be completed twice. Pulls that ghosts and goblins bullcrap magic. Once the player reaches the top of the castle and defeats the final boss, they'll be time warped back to the beginning of the castle, this time with a few new upgrades. The castle has gotten a little bit of a makeover and new areas have opened up for the stages. This is where the Castlevania aspect comes more into play. The player will now be able to get to previously inaccessible areas to save students and get upgrades. This will make the encounter with the true boss a bit easier, depending on power-ups, and allow you to get the secret true ending. Secret true ending will be a great treat for fans of Gun Gal and those who like 200 IQ gameplay. Getting the secret true ending is a little bit of a chore though. At the beginning of the game, there's a tool that tells you exactly where the students and power-ups are, usually by flicking the right thumbstick. In order to get the secret true ending, you have to find every student's panties. So this basically what this tool does, it tells you exactly where everything is. These panties will not be detectable by the previous tool that gave exact locations, which means it's going to make a lot of exploring around. It makes things very inconvenient, and there is no map, so you can't really mark things where you've been. Sure, there's like one right before you enter the stage, but are you really going to memorize that? They should at least put a map on the pause screen to respect the player's time. I spent an unnecessary amount of time shooting walls and backtracking to find these panties, and most of the time I left pantyless. Quite disappointed. And the soggy cherry on top of this is that there is no fast travel or option to go back to the stage select screen. Instead, you have to exit game, load up your save, and go back to stage select. Come on dude, it's 2023. I got other cool ass games to play. So who is this game for, I hear you ask? That's a great question, homie. If you're a retro fan of linear action platformers, this is a great one to add. If you love 2D linear Castlevania games and you want a little bit more to that, with good sprite art, this is the one. If you enjoy the Galgun series and you want to try its spin-off and support indie creates, this is exactly up your alley. It's a fun game for those who seek neo-retro games with a new soul. Don't pick this up and expect Symphony of the Night and Hollow Knight with a Galgun skin. It's not that at all, and don't trick yourself into thinking that. Don't let anyone else tell you that. It's a classic Vania action platformer. No interconnected worlds here. I spent 18 to 20 hours really, getting a 100% completion rate. And of course, your time may vary, but because I was also doing a lot of no damage boss battles, so you might get a little bit something shorter. Grim Guardians can be purchased on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC via Steam for $24.99 US. Thank you for Intercreates for the review key, and especially you homies for checking out the review. As always, thank you for staying until the end. Always consider leaving a like and subscribe for more indie and retro content. Stay spicy and have a super day.